20-year-old Arnold Archambeau sat behind the wheel of his car, looking out the cold morning air from behind the stop sign in front of him at a secluded intersection. It was on the edge of a reservation in Lake Andes, South Dakota. It was December 12th, 1992, and sitting next to him was his 19-year-old girlfriend, Ruby Bruguier, and her 17-year-old cousin, Tracy Dion, in the back. After taking his chances, Arnold decided that no cars were coming, so he swerved out from behind the stop sign onto the road ahead. This sudden decision would cost him and his girlfriend their lives, leaving Tracy haunted for the rest of her life by the strange circumstances of their passings. All three had been drinking that night, so Arnold wasn't thinking clearly when he turned from the stop sign onto the road ahead. Tracy has no idea what happened next, but she knows that it was like a snap of a finger before the car suddenly plunged into a nearby ditch. Tracy regained consciousness to find herself upside down, and Ruby was the only one in the car with her. Arnold mysteriously disappeared. Ruby was in complete panic, apparently falling inside the car, crying and repeating, "Oh my God, oh my God." One of the car doors was open just enough for Ruby to quickly slide out of the wrecked vehicle, but it fell closed as Tracy tried to reach it to escape the horrifying situation she was trapped in. After Tracy was rescued by the police, they had already searched the area for any traces of the couple who had disappeared. Despite the fact the ice under the car was completely frozen solid, the police feared that the missing couple may have wandered off only to fall through the ice and drown elsewhere. The deputy commented that the police had an officer walk on the other side of the railroad tracks, thinking they maybe wandered off towards the lake area, which was also frozen. He also testified that he believed Arnold may deliberately fled to prevent his arrest for driving while intoxicated, and therefore suggested he would likely return in a few days. Suffice it to say, he didn't, and neither did his girlfriend. Karen Tuttle, Arnold's aunt, refused to accept the theory, saying, "I know he wasn't going to hide. He would have come home or called us and said, 'I'm here, don't worry about me.' But we haven't heard from him." Working tirelessly, the police spent the next 3 months chasing every possible lead with no results. It seemed the couple had completely disappeared. This continued at least until the arrival of spring thaw in early March. A passing motorist discovered the horrific sight of a body floating in a ditch just 75 feet from the crash site. That body was that of Ruby Bruguier. When the police arrived, he was completely shocked by what he saw. She was wearing the same clothes she was wearing when she disappeared, and they were completely intact. However, her shoes and glasses were missing, and her body was badly decomposed, so decomposed that she was hard to identify at first. The police had to analyze her tattoos to identify the body. Spurred on by the sudden discovery of the missing woman, they decided to pump the ditch. Before noon the next day, they found Arnold. He was in the water around 15 feet from where Ruby was found. Strangely enough, his body was in almost perfect condition. His complexion was good, and he did not seem to be frozen to the ground as one might expect. The deputy said it is not known if he was wearing the same clothes he was when he disappeared. disappeared. An autopsy was immediately performed on his remains, but it was impossible to determine when he passed away. The coroner said that they determined the two victims passed from exposure, but the deputy was skeptical. He says that it was absurd to say that they froze in that ditch because they would have been there for 3 whole months if that was the case, and he had already gone through the same ditch several times in those months. He also had written statements from people who had nothing to do with the case, who swore the bodies couldn't be there. The deputy refused to believe they had been in the ditch the whole time. This was confirmed by the finding of 2 more objects that did not seem to correspond to the official hypothesis. Hair was found on the side of a nearby road, which forensic analysis determined belonged to Ruby. It's unlikely that the hair could have been there for 3 months. The deputy suggested that the couple were abducted at the scene of the crash, and whoever their captors were brought them back to the ditch. That must have been when that hair fell off of Ruby's head. Keys were found in Arnold's pocket when he was dragged up from the ditch. The deputy still has these keys and has not been able to find the vehicle or the house they belong to. In another stunning development in the case, a witness claimed to have seen Arnold with 3 people on New Year's Eve. Almost 3 weeks after the crash, she was given a polygraph test and passed. Ruby's father says the couple had to have passed away somewhere else and someone had put them back there again, making it seem they passed shortly after the crash. Their bodies were found in 2 vastly different stages of decomposition, despite both apparently being underwater for presumably the same amount of time. It doesn't make any sense for Ruby to have been badly decomposed and for Arnold to be in good condition. This raises the question of what Arnold was doing after Ruby had passed. Some suggest he took the life of Ruby and then went to the New Year's Eve party where he was supposedly seen next. I find this unlikely. There is no motive for it that we know of. Where was he when Tracy regained consciousness? Was he thrown from the vehicle? Did he get up and leave, but decided not to get help to avoid punishment? Why didn't Ruby help Tracy after leaving the vehicle? She had the opportunity to, but didn't. And she probably would have called for help as soon as she left the vehicle if she hadn't been able to save Tracy herself. Where did Ruby go after leaving the vehicle? Is Tracy telling the truth about what happened after the crash? Noel Pereira and Miguel Jose Viana were found decomposed on Vietnam Hill in August 1966 by a boy flying a kite. They were lying side by side and elegantly dressed. The boy immediately reported his discovery to the police. When investigators arrived at the crime scene, they discovered some oddities. First, it seemed rather unusual that there were no signs of a struggle or violence at the scene. There were no visible injuries on the body that would indicate that they had fought with an attacker before having their lives taken. Furthermore, the place where the bodies were found did not appear to have been disturbed in any way. Investigators believe the 2 men just simply laid there and passed away. Another aspect to have been disturbed in any way. Investigators believed the 2 men just simply laid there and passed away. Another aspect of the incident that was strange was that both men were wearing waterproof raincoats over their suits. The outfits they wore were identical. Next to the crime scene was a packet containing 2 towels and an empty water bottle. The strangest aspect of the case was the 2 men were wearing lead face masks. The lead masks did not have eye holes and are mostly used to protect people from radiation. There was also a notebook which contained a mysterious schedule. 16:30, be at the determined place. 1830, swallow the capsule after the effect protect metal weight for mask signal after effect protect metal weight for mask signal. After the discovery of their bodies, investigators immediately began looking for more information about the two and how they could have passed under such strange circumstances. According to family members of the two deceased men, Manuel and Miguel informed them 3 days earlier that they were going to Nitro to buy equipment and a car for work. The two took a bus from Campos to Nitro, where they reached their destination. They bought raincoats and a set of towels. They also stopped at a bar to buy a bottle of water. A witness at the bar told investigators that Miguel was acting very strange and was constantly looking at his watch. This indicated that the two of them had a very important place to be, and seemingly time was running out. Surprisingly, toxicology scans were never performed on the bodies. Presumably, the reason is that the coroner's office was overcrowded. By the time the bodies were attended to, they were too decomposed to be accurately tested. If the tests had been done in time, as is customary in such cases, investigators would have been able to determine whether the two men had actually swallowed said capsule, as was written in the mysterious notebook. They could also have determined whether the toxins in the capsule were what caused the two men to pass away. The case raised several questions that have not been resolved over the years. The police have not yet been able to determine whether they had their lives taken or took them themselves, with no real evidence for either. Many theories have been suggested to explain the passings and the mysterious circumstances surrounding them. Some believe that an unknown person lured the two men to the scene and took their lives. It's argued that this hypothetical criminal forced the men to write the strange schedule in the notebook, which is why it has several grammatical errors, attempting to exploit their gullibility and rob them. The theory is not widely accepted, but no money was found on the bodies, making it possible they were robbed. Trying to explain the case led to speculation that the two men were time travelers. Proponents of this theory claim that the two men were able to achieve this through some wormhole. In this case, waterproof raincoats and lead masks were used as protective equipment. However, this does not explain the purpose of the capsule. The most popular theory that tries to explain the lead mask incident is that the two individuals were actually UFO fanatics. They looked forward to contacting aliens. The theory has flaws, but surprisingly has evidence to back it up. Family members and friends confirmed that the men were very interested in UFOs, so much so that they even set up a small lab to study them. The place where they were found is a hot spot for UFOs. Many residents of the area have noticed strange aerial lights in the area. A resident claimed to have seen a UFO hovering exactly over the spot where the two were found. Also, the time the witnesses allegedly saw the mysterious object matches exactly when police believe the two men lost their lives. Some believe the men took the 100-mile bus ride to Nitro to take their lives and join the mothership after contact with the aliens. However, strong evidence indicated that they intended to get their deposit back after returning the bottle. In addition, television equipment and other supplies were found in their possession. This fits well with the story they told their families about buying supplies for work, as they were repairmen. It's unlikely they thought this would be their last trip. Despite many theories, investigators have not been able to build a solid case for the potential crime and probably never will. Mohammed Sijid was arrested in early September 2002 in India. Soon after this, the police began searching the abandoned house. There seemed to be so many stories about a 56-year-old divorcee named Jaya Prada lived in the house with her 2 daughters, but neighbors had not seen the family for months. The last time anyone said they saw them was in June, and the stories told by neighbors about the family were disturbing. The community said that the people who lived in the house were strange people who probably practiced witchcraft or something similar. They apparently lit candles and walked around their house at midnight, and strange noises would come from the house. People have reported that they once saw bottles of red fluid hanging on the porch. One of the daughters is said to sometimes sit outside on the porch and play with one of those vials. Despite their garbage bins being only a 2-minute walk from the house, they always used a car to travel that short distance. Jaya Prada would go after passerbys with an axe and was allegedly abandoned by her husband for how dangerous the family was. There was no money or cable connection in the house. Electricity bills were paid in advance for 2 or 3 years. According to the police, some students of a nearby college filed a complaint about the strange family 2 years ago. The police soon learned that the family had mysteriously disappeared in June that year. No one saw them, and apparently everyone was too afraid of them to go to the door to see how they were doing. Their front hall was piled high with newspapers in June, and the front door was locked. Police soon found an entrance that Muhammad could have used, noting that there was a side door that was not locked. When the police entered the house, they found the whole place ransacked, likely done by Mohammed, and the family's clothes neatly arranged next to their bodies. Various documents were scattered on the floor. The bodies were badly decomposed. The temperature was not too high then, so the decomposition was slower than typical, so the neighbors did not notice the smell of rotting bodies. A bottle of black liquid was found in the room where the corpses were and was sent to the laboratory for analysis along with the bodies for autopsy. After such the shocking event, which was reported in the local newspapers at the time as being a total hoax. Although details of the results of the autopsy were not easily found, the report at the time was based only on the assumption that they passed from being poisoned. There is a lack of sources in English. Autopsies revealed that the family had passed away 6 months before they were found. If the autopsies are correct, this means the family were seen for 3 months after their supposed passings. Residents in the city now questioned who they saw performing those strange rituals and threatening passerbys with an axe. Although the abandoned house had been without electricity for more than 10 years, the lights apparently still are on at night for no apparent reason. The gates are always locked and the driveway lined with large stones for some obscure symbolic purpose. There is a story about how a cyclist whose headlight went out by itself when he entered the road where the haunted house is located, after which he immediately crashed with one of his friends who was riding in the opposite direction. The police were apparently very present around the house to prevent any ghost hunters from breaking and entering. Quora forum user Sao Myth Raja claimed that he once was an aficionado for the stories surrounding the mysterious house. He lives in the city and had the opportunity to investigate the alleged haunted house. He found that the house seen on the news, which he previously thought was the house where strange things happened, did not quite match the description of the property given in the story. There was no garbage bins within 2 minutes of it. Next to the described house was a lane that split in 2. One of those paths was quite well lit by street lights. The nearest garbage disposal was 2 minutes from another house, and outside of this house was was completely dark, not lit by any streetlights. This lane has 3 dark green painted doors that are higher than the normal doors. All 3 doors lead to the same lot, and that lot has several structures, a bungalow and a castle-like building. This strange room is apparently known as the Condenba Haunted Palace and is much less known than the house that was highlighted as the crime scene by the media to prevent people from breaking in, which has happened. The story of the upstairs light that is always on in the haunted house is said to be related to the castle instead. This area has nightly police patrols and at one time had a restricted area sign on the gate. Though these claims are not proven, they are just urban legend. A blogger named Edita Cynthia claimed in 2013 that he solved the mystery of the haunted house and definitely refuted the claims made about it. He did so in a blog post that was later deleted out of concern for people living in the neighborhood. The story he uncovered is fascinating, not because it contrasts with much of the rest of the evidence about what may or may not be occurring in Condenba House. He lives in Hyberdat, the city this occurred in, which I have not mentioned yet because I was hoping to avoid embarrassing myself with my poor pronunciation of any foreign word. But at this point, it's just inevitable. My strategy is to pronounce words with confidence, even though I may be completely wrong. In the summer of 2002, the year that the family was found deceased, the blogger and his friends started looking for the house, although he had trouble finding it at first, largely due to the reluctance of people in the neighborhood to reveal its location. He and his friends eventually managed to find it and were deeply disappointed. It looked like an ordinary house. The gates were locked and there were indeed stones in the driveway, but a conversation with the neighbor quickly clarified the occupants of the house. Yes, there are people living in the house now. Locked the gate to prevent any ghost hunters from breaking in while they were on summer vacation. The stones were placed there so people couldn't use the driveway as an open space to park their cars or bikes. Edita therefore feels that the story has been debunked conclusively, though this is just the opinion of one investigator. The neighbors that Edita spoke to said that the story of the strange family and their unexplained passing was true. The Times of India covered it in 2002 when the story broke. The details of the family and their passing can be confirmed through the right sources, but unfortunately the autopsy details cannot be confirmed. The rumor is that the family passed 3 months before they disappeared.